Welcome back to another episode of the Tommy Brideson Show. I want to chat today specifically about how effort is your best friend and key ingredient to your long-term progress in the gym. Now, I think our industry is just, it's such an impactful industry that, is constantly refining. It's constantly getting better with new research, new methods, but there's a lot that's really documented as well. We know what it takes to get strong. We know what it takes to build muscle. So really what we're playing with is building and playing around with nuances and building systems around this. And I think often, a lot of time when we start to sort of break it all down is we get bogged down in, the idea of exercise execution being, absolutely spot on, or, the machine that you use has to be, exactly this machine with exactly this line of pull. Otherwise you're not going to get a result. But the reality is it couldn't be any further from the truth, because the training progress comes from effort. And I think that is the linchpin of everything. It doesn't matter what exercise you do, doesn't matter what method you do, doesn't matter what protocol you follow. If you do not show up and put effort in, take your sets to a point where, you're struggling, you're 1 or 2 reps shy of failure, with good technique, you're missing a huge component of the training process. And you get a lot of lifters that are, really well informed, and they have a lot of information, around the latest research, but they get bogged down in the ideas, and these methods, and, they forget to show up. And, at the end of the day, you could do the most basic training program with the most basic exercises, but show up and put in effort into those sessions, and you're going to make more progress than what you would having, a machine that's, perfectly leveraged for you with the line of pull exactly right for your lats, and, you can just get really bogged down in the weeds. And I think, when we start to look at this training process and, the more and more you stack things up as well, simpler in most cases is often better. Because I think if you're one of those people that want to find the key method, or you want to find the key exercise that's going to improve everything for you, you're probably looking at training the wrong way around. And you probably want to flip your lens a little bit and start to look at it and go, hey, can I just get in and really push hard, build as much muscle mass as I possibly can, build some strength around it, get great training technique, eat to fuel myself for my goals, whether it's putting on weight, maintaining, or recomping down, train hard, and then as you hit resistance, you might find that there's a lagging body area, or you might find that there's a lift that, is letting you down if you're a power lifter. Then once you hit that point, that's when you start to go, okay, well, how do we actually get better at this? Rather than coming in and being like, this has to be perfect, your execution on this has to be perfect, otherwise there's no point doing it. And, unless you're following this particular protocol for your biceps, they're not going to grow. It's just not the right way to look at it. The training has been around for, forever, and, training hard always trumps the latest fad or the latest technique or the latest method. Now, on the flip side of this, I'm not discrediting any of this stuff at all, because, it is, as a coach, as a practitioner, geeking out on this stuff is the bread and butter of what we do. We're trying to make, our training programs as efficient as they possibly can be, the exercises that are really targeting, whether it's weak points, strong points, asymmetries that you have in your body. We're really trying to, make our coaching systems and our training as best as it possibly can. But, as the end user of these particular, training programs or rehab programs, whatever they are, you can't overlook the fact that you just need to try hard. You need to show up and just do the thing repeatedly to actually get the result. Because, there's, a lot of different machines and stuff that are coming into the market now, and, they put tension in different spots of the lifts. But, I've often been asked about these machines, and people are like, would you ever get these particular machines because, you can do this and this? And I'm like, the reality is I probably don't place that much value on them. And it's not because they're bad machines. I just think 98% of the population wouldn't actually get the value from it. And it's kind of like, well, why would you invest into something that, 2% of the population could use? If you had a gym that was all full of, top end bodybuilders, wanted to absolutely maximize the 1% of their training programs, sure, they could be a good addition to your actual, your exercises and your exercise equipment that you have in the gym. But, it's not going to make or break. If you look at some of the old school bodybuilders, like they were training in, really run down, beaten up, gyms with, really basic equipment, but they showed up, they recovered hard and they trained hard, and that's the recipe for making progress in your training journey. Now, the nuances of training really, as you progress through your training journey, that's where the nuances come in. Like say you'd been training for, bodybuilding for, 10 years of your life, and, you've kind of done, a similar routine, and you feel like you've potentially maximized what you can get out of, the structure that you have. That's when you might start to look and go, okay, well, how can I either increase the intensity of these training sessions, or how can I increase the overall work that I do in these training sessions so that I can start to get a little bit more progress? But, you want to naturally go through these stages of training. You don't want to just go to the end. Like you want to, as you get to a certain point where it feels like your training is slowed down or your progress isn't what it should be, you then go, okay, well, what's the solution here? What's the problem to take me to my next level of training? Because, if you love cars and, your first cars when you get your P's is, the best Ferrari that you can buy, there's going to be, where further do you go than that? You're at the pinnacle, So the reality is what you want to do is, take your time through that journey as well. And you stack the layers up as you go, you want to do the minimal amount as well as you're training. You don't want to just start on the hardest. So if I could be doing 3 sets of 10 repetitions on biceps and my biceps are growing an inch a month, which is completely unrealistic, by the way, but if they were and they were growing an inch a month, I would be like, well, why would I do 4 sets of 10? That's not going to do anything more beneficial than the inch a month that I'm getting. That's fantastic. So run the course out on, the types of training programs you're doing, the methods that you're doing, and do it well and execute it well with intent and effort. Because the reality is it's like, whether you do a single arm lat pull down versus an old school overhand lat pull down, it doesn't really matter. If you can feel your lats working, you can feel your back working, and you can put the effort into the exercise, sure. Let's play around with nuances. I love them. Let's have a chat about that. Let's see where that fits into your training program. But the reality is it's not make or break. Like if you're training for, building muscle mass and, someone says a pendulum squat is the best exercise that you can do to build your quads and you don't have access to a pendulum squat, who cares? Do a leg press. You know what I mean? Like there's always a solution, and there's no one bit of equipment. There's no one bit of, there's not one line of pull that's going to be, that's the only way I can build my lats, or that's the only way I can build up my quads. There's so many tools, but the reality is none of them actually work unless you show up and do the work. And, I think research is so awesome, and there's a lot of new research coming out at the moment, and, what we're doing is looking at nuances of things. We know the basic principles of training. So when we're getting these new emerges of, research that's come out, it's great to use it, but you go, where does that fit in to the overall system and, the methodology and the principles that you have within your training? It's not like, oh my God, like some research came out last year about, or it might have been at the start of this year, about partial range movements. And it's like, okay, great. So does that mean that all my training programs now only train partial ranges because, I'm going to build more muscle mass with a partial range? No, it's like contextually, where does that fit into the training program? If someone's coming back from, an injury, they've had a niggle, and, they can't go full range of movement, we know that we can elicit, a hypertrophy response by training a partial range of movement. That's great. That's a tool in my toolkit, but it doesn't mean that you then just go flip everything on the head and you change everything that you've believed in and that you've seen work and has worked historically for, the test of time. But you want to make sure that, when you're getting new information, you're learning new things and you're getting these new methods, that you're fitting them into what you currently do. Because yes, you want to improve. Yes, you want to get these things better, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again, because what works now will work tomorrow. But it's really what the issue becomes is you're a problem solver. As a coach, as a practitioner, we become problem solvers. So solve the problems as they arise. If there's any huge red flags that you're looking at, sure, identify it and go, okay, how do we fix this before it becomes an issue? But if there is no issue, it's like, don't fix something that's not an issue. You don't need to create an issue. So with training, I think the number one thing that, often is missed is just effort. You don't need a new exercise. You don't need a new machine. Show up, work really, really hard for an appreciable amount of time, fuel yourself, train smartly, don't overtrain, recover hard, and you'll probably make more progress than what you ever have. And, it's not about the perfect diet. It's not about the type of diet that you do. It's not be all end all. It's not the perfect program that's going to do it. It's your effort and it's showing up. And honestly, it's going to trump every ounce of progress you make by just showing up and putting the work in. Because if you're just coming in and you've got this perfectly planned program and you half-ass it, you're not going to get the results that you're chasing. So come into the gym, come in with a plan and execute it, and you will make a ton of progress. And that's it for today's episode. I'll see you guys in the next one.